Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Let me start with a truth that some won't like, but we need to hear it. The era of the provider, male of man, who carried the full weight of financial security, who built a home while his woman nurtured itis fading. It's not dying because men are weaker. It's not ending because men have given up. It's changing because modern women demanded change. The concept of the provider male has been deeply ingrained in human history. For generations, a man's worth was measured by his ability to protect, provide, and ensure the survival of his family. It was not just an expectation, it was an identity. Men were raised to believe that their success, their pride, and even their dignity rested on their ability to be the pillar of financial and physical security. In the past, societies were structured in a way that reinforced this role. Women were often dependent on men due to legal and economic restrictions that prevented them from earning on their own. Marriage was not just about love, it was about survival. A partnership where both roles were clearly defined. Men went out to hunt, build, and earn, while women nurtured, cared for, and maintained the home. It was a system that for centuries worked within the context of its time. But times changed. With the rise of education, industrialization, and technological advancement, opportunities expanded. Women gained access to the workforce, pursued higher education, and began to carve out their own financial independence. It was no longer about survival, it was about choice. Women chose careers, passions, and ambitions that extended beyond the traditional role of homemaker. And as they gained financial power, the need for a sole male provider diminished. At first, this shift seemed like progress for everyone. Women found freedom, and men were relieved of the overwhelming burden of being the only financial pillar in the household. But with this freedom came confusion. The very structure that defined masculinity began to erode. If a man was no longer needed to provide, then what was his role? What was his purpose? Suddenly, relationships became less about survival and more about fulfillment. Women no longer needed a man to sustain them, they wanted a man who could complement them. But here's the catch. The qualities that once defined an ideal man did not evolve as quickly as society did. Many women still desired men who were leaders, providers, and protectors. Yet they simultaneously rejected the framework that allowed those roles to exist. The traditional provider model was expected without the traditional dynamic that supported it. This led to a crossroads. Some men adapted, learning to navigate this new world by redefining masculinity beyond just financial provision. Others felt lost, struggling to find their place in a society that no longer saw them as essential. And some resisted, clinging to outdated expectations that no longer aligned with reality. What we are witnessing today is not just a shift in gender roles, it is a complete transformation of how we define value in relationships. The provider era as we knew it may be over, but that does not mean men are obsolete. It means the role of the modern man must be redefined, not erased. Independence is one of the most powerful forces in human evolution. It is the ability to stand on one's own, to make choices freely, and to carve out a path without reliance on anyone else. For centuries, independence was a luxury that many women did not have. Their survival was directly tied to the men in their lives' fathers, husbands, brothers who provided financial security, protection, and stability. A woman's role was predetermined, and stepping outside of that role was not just difficult. In many cases, it was impossible. Then came a revolution, not in the form of a single event, but through decades of change. Women fought for their right to vote, to receive an education, to work, and to earn their own money. It was not an easy battle. It required breaking societal norms, challenging traditions, and pushing against deeply ingrained beliefs about gender roles. But the fight was won. Women gained access to opportunities that were once reserved for men. And with that access came something even more powerful than financial freedom: autonomy. For the first time in history, women were no longer dependent on men for survival. They could work, build careers, buy homes, and sustain themselves without needing a husband or a provider. This was a monumental shift. It changed the way women viewed relationships, marriage, and even their expectations of men. No longer was a man's financial status the defining factor in his desirability. Women began prioritizing other qualities: emotional intelligence, ambition, shared values, and companionship over mere financial provision. However, independence also brought unintended consequences. The very dynamic that had held relationships together for generations was suddenly being redefined, and not everyone knew how to adjust. Men who had been raised to believe that their worth was tied to their ability to provide found themselves questioning their purpose. If women could take care of themselves, then what did men bring to the table? At the same time, many women struggled with the balance of independence and partnership. While they enjoyed the freedom of self-sufficiency, they also longed for strong, capable men who could lead, support, and contribute to a shared life. But in this new world, expectations became contradictory. Women wanted a provider, but they also wanted full control. They sought leadership from men, but resisted any form of traditional male authority. The lines between independence and partnership became blurred, leading to a cultural divide that still exists today. This rise of independence has reshaped relationships in ways that previous generations could not have imagined. While it has empowered women to live life on their own terms, it has also created new challenges in how men and women connect. The era of dependence is over, but in its place. We are still figuring out what the new relationship model should look like. Change is never free. Every transformation, no matter how progressive or necessary, comes with a cost. The shift from a world where men were the unquestioned providers to one where women hold equal or even greater financial power has altered the very fabric of relationships, family structures, and societal expectations. At first glance, this change seems like a win for everyone. Women now have independence, and men are relieved of the sole financial burden. But beneath the surface, this shift has created a new set of challenge zones that we are still struggling to fully understand and navigate. One of the most significant costs of this change is the erosion of clearly defined relationship roles. For generations, men and women knew what was expected of them in a partnership. A man's role was to provide, protect, and lead, while a woman's role was to nurture, support, and build the home. It was a dynamic that, while not perfect, provided a structure that both men and women understood. Today, that structure no longer exists in the same way. Women have stepped into the workforce, taken leadership roles, and gained financial autonomy, while men have had to redefine their role in a society that no longer depends on them for survival. This has led to confusion, frustration, and often resentment. Many men feel displaced, uncertain about where they fit in a world where their traditional role has been dismantled. They are told to be strong but not controlling, to lead but not dominate, to provide but not assume their contribution is more valuable than a woman's. This constant push and pull leave many men feeling as though they are walking on eggshells, afraid to embrace their natural masculine energy for fear of being labeled outdated or oppressive. On the other hand, women, despite achieving financial independence, are experiencing new struggles as well. The burden of providing, once solely placed on men, has now extended to them, and many women find themselves exhausted from trying to balance careers, relationships, and personal fulfillment. They have more freedom than ever, yet many still express dissatisfaction in their romantic lives. Why? Because while independence is empowering, it does not eliminate the deep human desire for partnership, security, and emotional connection. Many women still want strong, capable men, yet they struggle to reconcile that desire with the independence they have fought so hard to achieve. The rise of independence has also contributed to a growing disconnect between men and women in relationships. The dating landscape has become a battlefield of unrealistic expectations and misaligned values. Men feel they are no longer needed, while women feel that modern men are not stepping up in the ways they desire. As a result, relationships are becoming more fragile, marriage rates are declining, and many people, both men and women, are feeling lonelier than ever, despite living in a time of unprecedented freedom. Another cost of this change is the impact on family structures. In the past, the traditional family model provided stability, with each partner playing a distinct role in raising children and maintaining the household. Today, with both men and women prioritizing careers and financial success, family life has taken a back seat for many. Children are often raised in households where both parents are constantly working, leading to new challenges in parenting and emotional connection within families. While financial security is important, the absence of strong family bonds can create emotional voids that no amount of career success can fill. We cannot deny that the shift toward gender equality has brought incredible opportunities and advancements. Women have the power to build the lives they choose, and men are no longer burdened by the expectation of being the sole providers. But with this progress has come a trade-off that has left many people searching for balance. Relationships are no longer driven by necessity, but by choice. And with choice comes complexity. The question now is not whether the change was good or bad. The question is, how do we move forward in a way that allows both men and women to thrive together? The cost of change has been high, but it does not have to be permanent. If we can find a way to embrace progress while still honoring the deep-rooted needs of both men and women, we can build a future where relationships are not defined by outdated roles, but by mutual respect, understanding, and shared purpose. The modern man stands at a crossroads, caught between the legacy of his ancestors and the expectations of a rapidly changing society. For centuries, men were raised with a singular purpose: to provide, to protect, to lead. Their worth was tied to their ability to build, conquer, and sustain. The traditional framework was clear, and there was little room for uncertainty. But as society evolved, so did the expectations placed on men. The provider role, once a badge of honor, is no longer enough. In fact, for many, it has become outdated. The modern man is now expected to be more than just a financial pillar, must be emotionally intelligent, self-aware, adaptable, and capable of navigating a world that no longer depends on him for survival, yet still desires his presence. This shift has created an identity crisis for many men. They were raised with the belief that strength comes from responsibility, that masculinity is defined by action, sacrifice, and the ability to take care of others. But in today's world, those same qualities are often met with resistance. A man who takes charge is labeled controlling. A man who embraces his masculine instincts is told he is too aggressive. A man who expects to be the provider may be seen as outdated or even oppressive. This has led to a generation of men who feel lost, unsure of what role they are meant to play in relationships, in families, and in society at large. At the same time, the pressure on men has not disappeared, has only transformed. The expectation to succeed remains, but now it extends beyond financial stability. The modern man is expected to provide emotional support, to communicate openly, to be vulnerable without being weak, to lead without dominating, and to succeed without making success his sole identity. He must balance ambition with humility, strength with gentleness, and leadership with partnership. He must be confident but not arrogant, assertive but not aggressive, protective but not possessive. The line between masculinity and toxicity has become blurred, leaving many men afraid to fully embrace their natural instincts for fear of being labeled the wrong kind of man. In relationships, the role of the modern man is equally complex. Women today are independent, self-sufficient, and capable of providing for themselves. Yet many still desire a partner who exhibits leadership and strength. The challenge is that modern relationships often reject the traditional provider model while still longing for the essence of what it represented: stability, protection, and unwavering support. This contradiction has left men confused about what women truly want. Should they take the lead, or should they step back? Should they provide, or should they expect a partnership of equals? The lack of clarity has created a culture where many men either disengage entirely or struggle to meet expectations that feel impossible to satisfy. Beyond relationships, the workplace has also forced men to redefine their role. Once, a man's career was his identity, his purpose, and his proof of success. But in today's world, work-life balance, emotional fulfillment, and mental well-being are just as important as financial achievement. Men are now expected to be present fathers, engaged partners, and emotionally available individuals, all while still excelling in their careers. The traditional idea of the workaholic provider has been replaced by the expectation of a well-rounded man who can navigate every aspect of life with ease. But the truth is, many men were never taught how to balance these competing demands. They were raised to be strong, but not necessarily to be emotionally aware. They were taught to provide, but not necessarily to nurture. The modern world has placed new demands on men without fully preparing them for what this new version of masculinity requires. At the core of redefining the modern man is the question of purpose. If a man is no longer solely defined by his ability to provide, then what defines him now? Many men find themselves searching for meaning beyond money, beyond status, beyond traditional measures of success. Some turn to personal growth, fitness, and discipline to reclaim a sense of control. Others seek out deeper emotional intelligence, learning to express themselves in ways that were once seen as weaknesses. The journey of the modern man is not about rejecting masculinity, but about understanding how to embody it in a way that aligns with the realities of today's world. For decades, society has swung like a pendulum, shifting from one extreme to another in its approach to gender roles, relationships, and personal identity. The traditional provider model, once the bedrock of family and community, gave men a clear role and responsibility. Women depended on men for financial security, while men depended on women for emotional and domestic stability. It was a system built on necessity, not necessarily fairness, but it provided structure. Then came the revolution. Women fought for and won independence, careers, and financial autonomy. The power dynamics that once defined relationships crumbled, and in their place, a new set of expectations emerged. But with these changes came unforeseen challenges. And now we find ourselves searching for something we lost along the way: balance. In this new era, neither extreme, the rigid traditionalism of the past, nor the radical individualism of the present can provide the fulfillment that men and women truly seek. While independence is essential, human connection remains just as important. The challenge now is not about who provides more or who leads, but how both men and women can contribute to relationships in a way that creates harmony rather than conflict. The old dynamic, where men were responsible for financial provision and women for emotional support, no longer fits the modern world. But at the same time, the belief that men and women are entirely interchangeable and that relationships can thrive without clear roles has also proven flawed. Balance does not mean erasing differences. It means learning how to integrate them in a way that strengthens rather than divides. For men, this new era of balance means embracing a version of masculinity that is both strong and adaptable. It is no longer just about financial provision, but about leadership in every aspect of life, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. A man in today's world must not only build a career, but also cultivate emotional intelligence, communicate effectively, and bring value beyond just his wallet. At the same time, he must not abandon the core qualities that make masculinity: powerful discipline, confidence, resilience, and the ability to create stability. The modern man must recognize that his worth is not diminished simply because women can now provide for themselves. Instead, his value comes from his ability to create something greater than just financial security: a vision, a purpose, and a foundation for strong relationships and families. For women, balance means understanding that independence does not have to come at the cost of partnership. The pursuit of financial success and personal achievement is important, but so is the ability to foster deep, meaningful relationships. Many women find themselves caught in a paradox, desiring a strong man who leads yet struggling to accept leadership from a partner because they fear it will undermine their independence. True balance is recognizing that strength in a man does not threaten a woman's power, and emotional openness in a woman does not make her weak. The healthiest relationships are built not on competition, but on complementing each other's strengths. In a world where traditional roles have been reshaped, balance also means redefining the concept of success in relationships. For too long, men were judged solely on their ability to provide financially, while women were judged on their ability to nurture and support. Today, success in relationships requires a deeper level of connection that goes beyond money, beyond rigid expectations, and into the realm of shared purpose. A man's role is no longer just to provide financially, and a woman's role is no longer just to support emotionally. Instead, both partners must contribute to the relationship in ways that create stability, love, and mutual growth. The need for balance also extends beyond relationships and into the broader societal landscape. The rise of individualism has given people the freedom to define their own paths, but it has also created a culture where connection and commitment have become secondary. In the pursuit of personal success, many have neglected the importance of building lasting relationships, families, and communities. The new era of balance is not about returning to the past, nor is it about continuing down a path of complete independence at the cost of deep human bonds. It is about finding a middle ground where men and women can work together, not as competitors, but as allies in creating meaningful lives. This balance is not something that will be achieved overnight. It requires unlearning outdated beliefs while also recognizing that not all traditions were inherently wrong. It requires open conversations, a willingness to adapt, and a commitment to understanding one another's struggles and desires. It is about recognizing that progress does not mean the destruction of roles, but the evolution of them. Men and women must learn how to bring the best of themselves into relationships and society, not by rejecting the past entirely, but by building upon it in a way that fosters respect, understanding, and true partnership. We stand at a defining moment in history where the old ways have crumbled and a new path is being forged. The provider male era, as it once existed, may be over, but that does not mean men have lost their purpose. It means their role is evolving. Women's independence has reshaped relationships, family structures, and the very fabric of society. But as we step into this new era, one truth remains unchanged. Men and women are not meant to compete, but to complement one another. The rise of independence has brought freedom, but it has also brought challenges, confusion about roles, uncertainty in relationships, and a struggle to find harmony between progress and tradition. We can no longer afford to see masculinity and femininity as opposing forces. Instead, we must recognize that strength and sensitivity, leadership and partnership, independence and connection all have their place. A new era of balance is not about returning to outdated expectations or rejecting the wisdom of the past. It is about embracing the best of both worlds. Men must redefine what it means to be strong not just in providing, but in leading with purpose, emotional intelligence, and unwavering stability. Women must embrace the power of partnership without feeling that it diminishes their independence. The future is not about choosing between the old and the new. It is about creating something better, something sustainable, something built on mutual respect and shared vision. If we can learn to navigate this transformation together, then relationships will not be weakened, they will be stronger than ever. Families will not fall apart, they will be built on deeper understanding. And society will not suffer, it will thrive. The provider era may have ended, but the opportunity to build something even greater has just begun. The question is, are we ready to rise to the challenge?